Right, so are our workplaces vulnerable to the Israel lobby? Well, a couple of stories here might expose just how they might be, especially if, as you should be, you belong to a trade union to look out for your interests in your workplace. Because just like political parties, trade unions have elections for who run them, who their presidents are or general secretaries are, who sit on their boards. The old adage of trade union barons spread by right-wing media rags is and always has been a nonsense. The real barons own those papers after all. But just as we've seen Israel lobby interference in political party leadership challenges, Keir Starmer becoming Labour leader whilst not telling us who funded him during the campaign. Anyone remember that? Well, it was the Israel lobby, wasn't it? If he'd told us, we might not have him inflicted on us now as PM, but there we are. So it seems it might be happening in the trade union movement as well. Israel lobby interference having just won the day again, temporarily perhaps at least, in a trade union election. But it's also far from the only example. And so all of our unions, no matter which we belong to, and again I reiterate, we all should belong to at least one, view the situation in Gaza and view their relations with Israel and what their actions are as well as their words on such matters should be of importance to us all. Because if the Israel lobby can interfere with who runs our unions, then if we need them in the workplace and we happen to be anti-Zionist, we happen to be pro-Gaza, pro-Palestine, who are the unions going to be working for at that point? Our interests or theirs? Right, so trade unions are enormously important, and I will always advocate for belonging to one, especially in these days of such rampant job uncertainty and insecurity. They have long been the bastions of worker solidarity, champions of fair employment practices and defenders of democratic rights worldwide. Their role in securing improved working conditions, fair pay, and a voice for the marginalised is vital to any functioning society. I stand by that 100%. They are that important, and attacks upon them should be viewed as attacks upon all of us, therefore, all of us working class people, ordinary working class people. But that doesn't put them above criticism when it's due, though. Recent developments suggest that even these bedrocks of democracy are not immune to external influence, specifically influence from pro-Israel lobbies and interests seeking to steer union leadership and policy from the shadows in Israel's interest. And there's a prime example of this going on right now, to my mind. The recent turmoil in the NASUWT teaching union follows the uncontested election of Matt Rack as General Secretary. And the reasons this has become an issue have a distinctly Zionist taint to them, it seems, in my view. Rack is an experienced union leader. He is the former General Secretary of the Fire Brigades Union, the FBU, and he assumed the position of NASUWT GenSec without competition, having been the only candidate to receive enough nominations to stand. Yet his appointment was immediately thrown into chaos by a legal challenge, apparently spearheaded by former NASUWT President Paul Butler, an individual who was not even eligible for the role under the union's own rules because, despite his previous role, he's no longer a member of the union. This upheaval, it would appear, has got an awful lot to do, though, with Rack's long-standing public support for a certain Jeremy Bernard Corbyn, the former Labour leader, vilified, as we know he was, by pro-Israel groups during his tenure. Still attacked for being an anti-Semite even now, despite it never having been true, and not a scrap of evidence existing to back any of that up. Yet it has made Rack a target for anti-Semitism smears by association, it seems, despite, like Corbyn, there being no credible evidence to suggest Rack himself has ever held or expressed anti-Semitic views. Instead, the campaign against him bears all the same hallmarks of the same politically motivated attacks that plagued Jeremy Corbyn, weaponising anti-Semitism, allegations that were allowed to discredit and derail a left-wing pro-worker leadership. Reinforcing that belief in my mind, pro-Israel hack Lee Harpin of the Jewish News has jumped on it, an outlet with an established record of highly partisan reporting, to put it politely, on these matters, published a story amplifying this line of thinking, suggesting Jewish members were alarmed by Rack's appointment and framing his leadership as evidence that the NASUWT and the NEU under Daniel Kebede meant that both major teaching unions in this country were now under far-left control, par for the course for such a horrible right-wing rag. Such language does not merely criticise, it vilifies, and by doing so positions support for social justice and international solidarity as well as workers' rights, as espoused by both Corbyn and Rack, as a threat to Jewish people somehow, and right-wing people as well, preferably both, such as the, I would like to think, nominal readership of that gutter rag. Any leader, in effect, who refuses to bend to pro-Israel orthodoxy as peddled by such papers is demonised, regardless of their records on things like equality or inclusion or workers' rights or anything resembling the truth, frankly, in my view. But the truly scandalous aspect here, however, lies in the legitimacy of the challenge itself. Matchrack was uncontested because he was the only candidate to secure the necessary nominations. Butler, meanwhile, was barred under NASUWT rules due to his lack of active membership at the time of the election. Yet inexplicably, Butler's challenge, backed by unknown financial sources, has resulted in Rack being reduced to interim General Secretary pending a court injunction. So is it not fair and pressing question, therefore, to ask who is funding this effort? Who is funding this court case? Given the established patterns of the Israel lobby funding political interventions in the UK, including the well-documented financial backing of Keir Starmer's Labour leadership campaign, which was kept very hush-hush throughout the duration of that campaign, the suspicion that pro-Israel interest might be behind Butler's court case is not, I don't think, particularly far-fetched. It is an uncomfortable but necessary question for anyone concerned with democratic integrity in our unions or in any organised body, any elected body, to ask who is funding this action. It's not a cheap action. According to Harpin, Mishcon de Rea have been hired, the same firm Starmer tried to go second jobbing for under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, which Corbyn blocked. Now, on one hand, there are concerns being voiced by some that Matchrack, having never been a teacher, shouldn't be leading a teaching union. Harpin didn't go with that line. Well, he secured the nominations, though, so some teachers are clearly fine with it. And having run a public service union before, he has an experience of running a union, if not of being a teacher. So what do you need more in running a union, therefore? Equally, back to the pro-Israel side of things, a quote not in the Jewish news, but an outlet that is seen by many as having been just as bad when it came to pro-Israel positioning, and especially when it came to Jeremy Corbyn on such matters. The Guardian wrote, "The Partnership for Jewish Schools said Rack's nomination was deeply troubling, adding the many Jewish members of the NASUWT are likely to find this appointment particularly challenging. Educational unions must represent the interests of all members without prejudice or bias." Well, what prejudice or bias has Matt Rack shown against Jewish people? Please present the evidence. I bet many of them don't have an issue with it, these Jewish NASUWT members. Who is this school that's been cited, and why is their one-sided view so important that it gets the mainstream media coverage here? Importantly, though, this is not an isolated case either. Evidence suggests that the Israel lobby's reach into UK trade unions extends beyond the NASUWT. Within Unite, my union, there have also been deeply troubling signs of a similar pattern of influence, only arguably more successful. Sharon Graham, the Unite GenSec, has systematically undermined international solidarity efforts, particularly those aimed at supporting Palestine. At Unite's upcoming 2025 policy conference coming in July, a motion has been included that seeks to drastically curtail the union's engagement in international solidarity campaigns, effectively ending its historical support for workers facing oppression abroad unless directly linked to UK jobs. Extremely inward-looking, very Reform UK-ish to my mind. The union movement is a global movement, so what is going on here? Now, such a narrowing of focus may seem pragmatic to some of you, yet it represents a betrayal of Unite's fundamental internationalist principles. Worse, it appears designed to stifle pro-Palestinian advocacy within the union particularly, something Sharon Graham has built up a bit of a track record of doing now, an area where the Israeli government and its lobbying arms have focused considerable efforts to silence dissent, so has it happened within Unite as well. As always, the go-to source for all things Sharon Graham and all things Unite is Squawkbox, who quote Jewish member and anti-genocide activist Gary Ostrolenk as saying in regards of this motion, Motion 90 is dishonestly called International Solidarity and Collective Bargaining, page 79 of the preliminary agenda. It calls for an end to any affiliations, relationships and actions that don't directly benefit the jobs, pay and conditions of UK Unite members. Submitted by the Bromley Council branch, it has the fingerprints of our General Secretary and NEC Chair all over it. This motion straightforwardly rejects any form of international solidarity between workers. Even if solidarity directly saves the lives, let alone jobs of trade unionists in another country, it is to be ruled out. Trade unionists in this country, such as Palestine. This is a racist and imperialist proposal in the worst traditions of right-wing British Labour bureaucracy. Solidarity between workers is the founding principle of our movement, and by definition is something that we show for the benefit of those with whom we stand in solidarity, not for our own direct benefit. Of course, we are all stronger when we all stand together, but that is not what the motion has in mind. This proposal is profoundly anti-working class. This is a shameful proposal using slippery and deceitful language to quietly outlaw expressions of international workers' solidarity within our union. It must be defeated. Graham's leadership has also seen a grotesque alignment with the UK government's increasing militarism on top of that. Just last month, she publicly applauded Labour Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves's commitment to boost defence spending, cuts for bombs, as critics have rightly described it, because it seems as long as the bombs are made in Britain by British workers, their use, including potentially by Israel in any number of its brutal military campaigns, is of little concern. And perhaps even more shockingly, Graham has suspended Unite's affiliation with the Stop the War Coalition as well, the organisation that is instrumental in protesting the ongoing genocide in Gaza. Yet still at the very same time, she will continue to funnel money into Keir Starmer's Labour Party, despite that party's complicity in Israel's atrocities. The Unite for Palestine group, a body of grassroots Unite members within the trade union, has accused Graham of a systematic attack on democracy here, within the union, deliberately designed to quash pro-Palestine activism and silence dissent, and really the question is why? What is her goal here? What is she trying to achieve by this? Why is she seemingly so avowed at being on the wrong side of public discourse on the matter of Gaza? Is the Israel lobby involved here somewhere as well? Maybe asking that last question still seems a bit of a conclusion to jump to for some, but we see it go on time and again. And if it's believable when it comes to politicians, why not other organisational leaders as well, such as within trade unions? Graham has also banned Unite officials and union banners from pro-Gaza protests. She has banned film screenings of the film Oh, Jeremy Corbyn, because it's Jeremy Corbyn, and book signings by pro-Gaza journalists like Asa Winstanley. She demanded a pro-Palestine fringe event at Labour conference in 2023 be scrapped, and the official who refused to do it got placed under investigation. And apparently she's also told her chief of staff to threaten a retiring official with the loss of their pension bonus if they didn't soften their stance in supporting Palestine. The implications of all of these developments across at least two unions, as cited here, both in past months and in the here and now, ought to be profoundly and deeply disturbing to ordinary working class people across this country. If pro-Israel lobbying efforts can influence who lead our trade unions, dictate their policy agendas, suppress international solidarity efforts, as seems perfectly plausible given what has been going on here, what protections therefore remain for rank and file members going forwards in their workplaces? It's one of the unspoken dangers here. This is the potential knock-on effect on workplace rights. If unions at the top are influenced or even compromised by pro-Israel interests in any way, what happens to workers who might then face discrimination because of their political beliefs, particularly if they are openly anti-Zionist or supportive of Palestinian rights as well? It's pro-Palestine support abroad right now, but what next? Will unions stand up for these workers if doing so risks upsetting the lobby, whoever else may be exerting pro-Israel influence from the shadows? Or will they be left to fend for themselves, abandoned by organisations that once prided themselves on protecting the marginalised, now picking and choosing despite membership dues still being paid? It's a hellishly dangerous precedent for workers to lose their most ardent representation. We are already seeing signs that this danger is not hypothetical, as public discourse increasingly conflates anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. Falsely, as that is, anti-Semitic in and of itself, as I see that, harming the fight against the very real thing. There's a very real risk that workers who criticise Israel can end up facing disciplinary action, professional ostracisation, and worse, possibly loss of support on top of that from their unions. Moreover, if unions become more beholden to lobbying interests rather than their own democratic memberships, broader issues of worker rights and protections could be compromised. Policies that serve corporate or political interests over worker welfare could end up becoming normalised, and the very notion of a union as a democratic member-led organisation could then be eroded. Doing of weak and feeble leaders as that would be. The interference being seen here in the NAS, UWT and Unite frankly serves as a warning, a wake-up call. The question is not just about Palestine solidarity or solidarity with any other nation abroad. It is about the future of the labour movement in the UK as well. If we allow unions to be manipulated or captured by external lobbies, whoever they might be, I've postulated the Israel lobby here, it could be others as well. Seems at work in these examples here to my mind, certainly. we undermine their ability to advocate for all workers in all contexts when they need their union. It is not conspiratorial to suggest that pro-Israel interests have a strategic reason to neutralise unions either. Organised labour has historically been one of the few sectors willing to stand in solidarity with oppressed peoples worldwide. Social justice born out of workers' rights and the struggle to get them and the fight to keep them as they are. Silencing or weakening this only serves in modern day context to isolate Palestinian advocates and reinforcing Israel's impunity to continue its atrocities and going forward perhaps our rights in the workplace in due course. However, sometimes the lobby groups themselves are the ones doing the imploding. The Board of Deputies of British Jews, for example, have had an absolute mare and have made matters 10 times worse for themselves in how they've responded to some internal dissent of their own, turning a fracture in their ranks over Israel into a gaping chasm. Get all the details of that story in this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch. Please do also hit like, share and subscribe if you haven't done so already, so as to ensure you don't miss out on all new daily content, sort of supporting the channel at the very same time, holding power to account for ordinary working class people. Well, I hope to catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.